Well, let me officially then welcome you all to our final session of our Summer Digital Fine Arts Festival. I'm Dr. Christy Gardner, and I serve as the chair of the Department of Communication Arts, Theater, and Art at Gordon College. And I don't know if you're feeling a little nip in the air. Yeah, not really, but it's fall tomorrow, officially for Gordon College. Classes start on campus. So our summer session is coming to an end. We've got a great presentation tonight. I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks to all of you. If you're watching the recording of this, thanks for the many who have joined us throughout the summer for a really spectacular festival. Our first time trying this in the department. We hope to be doing things like this again in the very near future, especially because of our topic. Our theme this summer has been looking at the role of art during a time of crisis. There is a lot to be considering around that theme, and looking forward to what our presenter has to say about that tonight. So without further ado, let me turn it over to our festival coordinator, Ryan Canister.
Hey everyone, just a few announcements before we get going here. The first one is that this session is being recorded to be shared later on our website and social media. If for any reason you're uncomfortable with being recorded, feel free to turn off your camera. We won't be offended. Or if you'd rather keep your face up, you can just send us a private chat message and we can always edit you out of the footage later. Before we post it. Second, if you have a question during the Q&A portion of this session, you can just raise your hand or feel free to put your question in the chat and we'll make sure to get to everybody. Third, a reminder to mute your microphones whenever you're not speaking so we can avoid as much feedback as possible. Fourth, this is our final session for the 2020 Digital Fine Arts Festival. More information on tonight's session and previous sessions and to view all the recordings from our past festival sessions, just please visit Gordon.edu/FineArtFest. We're hoping that this festival can become a yearly event for our department, and we definitely want to thank everyone who's been involved, whether you've attended every session, whether you've only been able to attend a few, to all of our hosts who so graciously lent their time this summer. Thank you so much. Without everyone, this would not have been possible. So thank you, and we hope that we can do it again next summer. So without further ado, I will tell you a bit more about our presenter for this evening. Kayla Dixon is a Boston-based theater educator and administrator. She graduated from Gordon College in 2017 with a double major in theater arts and communication arts, and is currently pursuing a master's degree in dramatic arts at the Harvard Extension School. She has done various film and theater work around Boston over the past few years, but her greatest passion is theater education. And today she will be sharing about her work with the Arlington Children's Theater. So please welcome Kayla.
Hi, everyone. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen. I have a little PowerPoint. Awesome. Jeff, hi Jeff.
Hey.
Good to see you.
You too.
All right. Okay, great. Can everybody see my screen? Great. Let's do it. So as Ryan said, I'm Kayla. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience working in theater education today. Awesome. So first things first, my journey into theater education. So in my time at Gordon, I didn't come to Gordon planning to pursue theater education. It wasn't really on my radar. I sort of just fell into it by accident. So the thought was sort of planted in my head when I was in Jeff's business of theater class one semester. Our final exam, or our final project rather, was to make a business plan for some sort of theater idea. And I remember having a hard time and not being able to decide what to do for the project. But at the time I was working for a daycare center. So it just sort of came to my mind, oh, I'll make up a theater program for the daycare. And I did all this research about theater education and theater with young children especially, and I put together this presentation about this fictional program with puppetry, and I made all these lesson plans, and the project was really successful. And I remember Jeff telling me, oh, this is so great, like you have to give this to them for them to actually do this program. But then I studied abroad the next semester, so I didn't end up ever giving it to them, but I still had that project and those resources. And then fast forward to after I graduated, and I'm looking for jobs and just sort of perusing and trying to find anything I can in theater. And I came across an opportunity at Arlington Children's Theater. They were looking for a teacher to teach acting in the Arlington public schools. So I applied to the job, and I went back to that project that I had. I still had the lesson plans that I made. That's a major important lesson. Always keep everything in a Google Drive or something, because you never know when some sort of project will be helpful in your career. So I went back to that project and those lesson plans that I made, and I updated them to be applicable for this job application. And I submitted it, and I got the job. And now I've been working with Arlington Children's Theater for a while now, doing lots of different stuff. So I teach classes in the Arlington Public Schools, ranging ages, starting from kindergarten, and I work all the way up to 12th graders, 18-year-olds. And then I also work on productions for them, doing a bunch of different things. So it is a nonprofit, which means you end up wearing a lot of different hats. So I do a little stage management, I direct, I choreograph, I music direct, just sort of going wherever I'm needed. So that's one way that I'm really grateful to have a liberal arts education, because in my time at Gordon, I learned a little bit of everything. And there have been so many moments where things have just come in handy, a skill that I didn't think I'd be needing, like operating a light board, and suddenly we don't have a board up and I need to do it. So there are just so many moments like that over the last couple of years that I've just been so grateful to have such a diverse skill set. Great. Cool. So now I want to talk a little bit about why I think theater education is important. I'm sure you all have seen, there's so many studies out there about the value of arts education in general. It's been proven to build so many important life skills, both creatively and otherwise. But I just wanted to sort of talk about my personal experience and what I've seen firsthand with my students. So one major thing is it builds confidence. I've seen time after time, I've seen kids become completely different people just from their work in theater. I remember one little girl, the first time she auditioned for us, she was so shy. I had never met her before. And she comes into the room and she's clearly got a lot of energy, but she's also very timid. And I just remember when it came time for her to audition, she raised her hand and said, I'm too shy. Can I have a buddy sing with me? And I remember she sang with a buddy, and because she was too shy to sing by herself. And then fast forward 3 months later, she's auditioning for the next show, and she's the first one to raise her hand to go. And just from having done one show with us, her confidence just grew exponentially. And she was so talented. She was always getting big roles because she just had it, but she didn't know that she had it until she had the experience. And I've just seen things like that happen so many times with my students. It also fosters community. The Arlington Children's Theater has a great relationship with the community. I just love seeing all the lasting friendships be made between both the kids and the families. So many of the parents have become so heavily involved in each other's lives just from being a part of this community, and it's really great to see. It also instills a lot of discipline. I've seen lots of kids go from just being wigglers and gigglers to being able to really focus and deliver a serious moment. I remember I had one student in the first show I directed there. He's just a ball of energy, and he's totally a class clown, and he just sense of focus is nowhere to be found. So I thought it would be fun to give him the lead and see what happened. And the first few rehearsals, I remember he's just goofing off, he's being the class clown, doing what he does. But throughout the course of the process, I saw him begin to grow and take leadership of what he's doing. and get to a place where he's telling the other kids to be quiet and focus, and it's time to work now. And I've seen that with so many students as well. And another important thing is it provides a safe place for a lot of kids. So many of my students don't feel safe at home or don't feel safe in school for some reason or another. Theater kids are often the outcasts of the group, wherever they are. And I've seen ACT really be a place where these kids can go and know that they're safe and know that they're valued and respected. And I think that's really important. So next I want to talk a little bit about my personal teaching philosophy that I've sort of adopted in my work. I'd say my number one rule is mutual respect. All of my students know this. Whenever I say what's the most important thing, they all say respect. It's important that I respect them and they in turn respect me. I try my best as much as possible to not treat them like children, not treat them with any less respect than I would adult actors, because I really want them to have ownership over what they're doing. I think it's really important for kids to feel like their work is their own. For example, if something goes wrong, it's on them to fix it because it's their show. I always tell them it's your show. I think before ACT, before I got there and some of my colleagues got there was a bit of a culture of it's more about the parents than the kids themselves. And if something went wrong, a parent would run on and fix it. If a prop's in the wrong place, a parent would run on and fix it, and everyone would have a little laugh because they'd know a mistake was made. But we sort of have been working to instill this culture of it's your show, take ownership of it, and fix things yourself. I can think of one specific story. We were working on a production of Annie, and the kid who was playing the butler, Drake, was supposed to bring out a phone for Daddy Warbucks to talk on, and he forgot. But instead of someone running on too late to bring out a phone, the actor who was playing Mr. Warbucks, he improvised, and instead of it being a phone call, he made it writing a letter. And he was like, Grace, take this down. And he just completely changed his whole monologue to be writing a letter instead of a two-way conversation. And those moments of growth would be totally missed if you belittle them and treat them like children, because they're capable of more. Yeah. Another way I practice mutual respect is I always am on the same level with my students. I always make it very clear that their ideas are just as important as my ideas, and I always make the time to hear them. I also am always on the same level physically with them. I never place myself above. So if we're doing anything, if they're sitting on the floor, I'm sitting on the floor too. If we're doing some weird activity, I'm doing it too. And I make sure I'm always a part of it so that they know that I respect them and that I view them as equals. We also try to practice this even with our auditions. So with auditions, we don't do like a standard, we sit behind the table and you stand over there and you give your song and your monologue, and then we make notes and you find out later. We format it like an audition workshop. So we'll spend most of the audition time just getting to know the kids and working on the material with them. So they get it in advance and they can learn it in advance, but we'll spend most of the night running through monologues with them, giving them notes on their songs and things like that. And then we'll all stand in a circle and just take turns doing it. So it sort of takes the pressure off and they really feel sort of that we're all in this together, which is what we're really trying to do. One final way I practice mutual respect is with the classes I teach. I always start with a check-in. So a lot of times it's after school. I'm usually working with young kids from kindergarten to 3rd or 4th grade. And often in school, they don't get to talk much during class about what they want to, right? You're not gonna raise your hand in the middle of math class and say, hey, I'm having a play date with Christy and I'm so excited. But our check-in time is for just that. So it can be anything. Normally, with adult actors, a check-in would be more to see how you're doing emotionally and anything that you might be bringing into the room. But with my young students, sometimes it's just helpful for them to have a place where they can speak about whatever they want to speak about. And so often it's just, I saw Frozen 2 and I loved it so much. And that's okay, because that's what they're excited about, and that's what they want to share with the class. So it has value. And it's important for kids to know from a young age that what they say and what they feel has value. And then with rehearsals, I always end with noticings. It's similar, it's sort of the opposite end of a check-in. It's anything that you notice throughout the entire rehearsal. It can be something that you notice that you did well, something you notice you can work on, something you notice that someone else did that you want to compliment them on, or often with these Zoom rehearsals that we've been having lately, it's, I noticed your cat walk by in the background. What's your cat's name? Or just anything. I noticed that painting on the wall, and I've been in this room so many times and I never saw it before. So it's just sort of a time to ground ourselves and just see where we're at and share anything that you want to say. I'm all about letting the kids talk and share their ideas. Another super important thing with teaching, I think, is adaptability. So much of my job is just taking what I know and adapting it to suit my students' needs. I always have a plan, but I very rarely stick to it. I think it's really important to sort of gauge where you are and where your students are, because sometimes they'll love something and sometimes they'll really not be into something. And it's important to just keep your finger on the pulse and know where you're headed and be willing to just throw your plans out the window at a moment's notice. With that said, I have an example of a lesson plan for my classes. So I'm just going to share that with you. Can everybody still see this? Great. Okay, so this is a lesson plan. I use the same format for all of my classes. I think it's really important to start with a goal and have just a general theme of the day to sort of always go back to, because I think it helps stick more. So I usually have some sort of like word or phrase that we're sticking with. So this lesson plan, for example, is about ensemble. So I'll say the word ensemble a million times throughout this class. So at the end of the day, I'll say, what did we learn about today? And they'll remember ensemble. And then a week later, they'll still know this word. And it's great. And I have times listed, but they are all big, big lies, because it never happens the way it does, because they might get really into Shazam because it's competitive and want to play that for 20 minutes, and then we skip something else. So it totally is dependent on what the kids are feeling on any given day. And it's really important to be adaptable and also just ready to go where you're needed. Especially working for a not-for-profit, it's a small staff and a lot of work to get done. So you just got to go where you're needed, even if something's not necessarily your job. Another big part of my teaching philosophy is play, because you're working with kids, you have to have fun, because kids are fun and they love fun. And I found that children's theater really is not for everyone. I've worked with some incredibly talented theater professionals that just don't have it when it comes to kids. And that's okay, because it is different. You really need to have both skill sets. You need to have talent in theater and you need to have talent working with kids, because it takes something else to do children's theater. You need to be ready to roll around on the floor and act like an octopus and be okay with feeling silly, and helping the kids not feel silly. That's so much of the job, is giving them permission to play, especially working with middle schoolers and high schoolers who are uncomfortable with their bodies and don't want to look weird in front of their friends. You have to be willing to look weird first so that they're willing to join you. Yeah, it's definitely not a job that you can do if you don't care. You have to care, and you have to be willing to have fun. And then a final piece of it is process over product. So we talk about this a lot at ACT. In most professional settings, I'd say a director's job is to serve the play, and that is important and noble work. But with educational theater, I would say my job is to serve my students. Because ultimately, if something is not helping them to learn and grow, there's no reason for it, because that's our whole purpose. Their experience doing the show is way more important than the show itself. but I've also found that having a good, strong, healthy process ends up making a great product. So you will end up with a great show if you have a great process, but that the show itself should not be the focus. I think I've especially been learning this lesson with everything happening with COVID, because we don't get to have the product anymore. We don't get a standing ovation. We don't get to perform in front of a live audience. We're doing everything online. So it's really their experience or nothing. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what happened with ACT when COVID hit. So all of our programming was canceled. The big shutdown happened on opening night of our biggest show of the year. 100 kids did not get to perform. It was devastating. So that was a real bummer. But we've been sort of adapting our programming and just sort of doing what we can. So I did our April vacation camp over Zoom. So we did a couple songs from The Lion King via Zoom, and it was a bit of a mess, but a ton of fun. And I think it was really special for the kids to get to connect after being home and not seeing their friends for a month and a half. And then for the summer, we've been doing what we're calling a summer conservatory. So we do sort of like a class pass, like people do with exercise classes, where you can get a class pass and pick and choose what courses you want to take. So our students have been able to do a bunch of different courses, and it's hard to not be able to work in person like we normally would, but it's also been sort of a cool opportunity to do some different kinds of programming. Like we would normally never take the time to teach a playwriting class because we just have shows all year round. So now we're sort of like, hey, let's study dramatic literature for a while, or teach playwriting, or someone offered a clowning class that was really cool. So it's just been sort of a cool opportunity to try different things that we normally wouldn't do throughout the year. And we're also in talks about doing some stuff outside, hopefully next month, fingers crossed. But yeah, so just sort of adapting where we can and just holding everything loosely and hoping for the best. But with that said, I would love to share a couple of videos from my classes that I've been teaching, just for some wholesome content for us all on this Wednesday. So I've got a couple of my students singing Chim Chim Cheree from Mary Poppins, and then a couple singing Reindeer Are Better Than People from Frozen Jr. So I'm gonna go ahead and play these.
Up where the smoke is all billowed and curled, between K-rays and stars are the chimney sweep's world, where there's hardly no day, nor hardly no night. There's things half in shadows and half laying light. On the rooftops of London, cool what a sight. Running the sweeps tonight, are we? The best view in the world, eh? Chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chim cheree. A sweep is as lucky can be. Chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chim cheroo. Good luck will rub off when he shakes hands with you. Oh, blow me a kiss, bird, and that's lucky too. Oh, you're going then? The wind has changed. But they're good kids, Mary. Would I be bothering with them if they weren't? But I can't help them if they won't let me. So they've got to do the next bit on their own. Cheerio, Bert. Keep an eye on them for me.
Stan, it's not like it's your fault that we're stuck in a surprise summer blizzard and no one will give us a room.
Or a barn. Or even a fish hut.
Yeah, what do they have against reindeer?
You got me.
Reindeers are better than people. Sven, don't you think that's true?
Yeah, people defeat you and curse you and cheat you. Every one of them's bad except you.
Thanks, buddy. But people smell better than reindeer. Sven, don't you think I'm right?
That's once again true for all except you.
You got me. It's calling night. Good night. Don't let the cross by.
Yeah, so those are a couple of my students performing via Zoom. There we go. Yeah, and then just my contact information. I think it's really important to use your network. That's the best way to get places. And I also have ACT's website. So if you know any kids who are looking for theater programming or theater educators who are looking for jobs, or if anyone that would like to make a donation because we're a not-for-profit, go ahead and go to that website. Yeah, that's all I have. And I'm going to pass it over to Ryan.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Kayla. Fantastic presentation. Yeah, so we'll move in now to just a general Q&A session here. Hopefully Kayla can answer any questions you might have, or if you'd just like to compliment her, that's fine as well. Yeah, I'll get us started here, Kayla, just in terms of thinking about our theme for this festival. I'm wondering if you want to take a crack at answering the question we've been asking all summer, what is the role of art in a time of crisis? And I guess specifically, what is the role of theater in a time of crisis? And this could be how you've seen the theater that you've been doing, how it's been working well, how you've seen theater in general, bigger picture, whatever you think.
Yeah, I think I would definitely say connection, because in these times we're living in, it's so easy to feel disconnected because you can't connect with people that in the ways you normally would. You can't see people, you can't hug people, and it's hard and it's really isolating. And I think theater and the arts in general have served as a source of connection because it can make you feel connected to people. I remember after the first camp I did, one of my students, we were just giving feedback afterward, and one of my students was like, yeah, it was really weird, but I'm really glad that we got to connect and see each other because I really missed everyone. So if nothing else, I think it can help people feel less alone.
Great.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can I go ahead? And a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, all I can say is I am so proud of you.
Thanks, Deb.
Incredible. It just feels like, I don't know what the right metaphor is, but we passed the baton and now you're running with it. And it's just great. I love hearing, and so many of the people that I encounter who do creative dramatics children's theater are either depleted and leave or energized by it. And you just seem to be energized by it. I love that. Just your immediacy. You talk about adaptability. I like the word faithful presence. I like the idea that we're just trying to be faithful in the present where we are. And it just seems like you are 100%. It's just so, so fun to hear about. I wouldn't want you to come and tell us at Theater Hour so other people can hear about this as well sometime, if you'd be willing to do that.
Sure.
And no, you wouldn't?
No, I said sure.
Oh, okay. And I just think we need to do this at Gordon, and you need to help us next summer. Create either an auxiliary of that or something. I think there's interest here, and I think it's a direction we need to grow. But that's my personal opinion. We'll have to find funding, but we'll do it. We'll find a way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Oh, I was just gonna say there's a huge market for it, and especially with Boston Children's Theater closing, there's even bigger of a market. There are some kids that need theater right now in this area.
So my question is about your online experience. I mean, I know what you've been doing, and I love that you're energized by it. Any other insights about it? Because it's hard, but and I hope you write down your stories, because you need to remember they're the kind of thing that you're gonna, on a discouraging day, you need to go back and read them, because they're just so great, and all those things that are happening that that you're going to lose track of, because they're going to keep building and building, and you can write the book, Kayla, someday, and you're going to need them. But any other insights about online, and then I'll be quiet.
Yeah, I think with teaching online, so much of it is trial and error, honestly. And I think it's a lot easier once you figure out the capabilities of your technology and plan around that. I did a lot of research and trying to figure out what was going to work best, because doing musical theater, you can't sing at the same time as other people over Zoom, or bad things happen. So I did, when I did The Lion King, it was a very complicated process. And what we did was, we had the students, we would learn the music together, and everybody would be muted so they could hear themselves, but I couldn't hear them. So I had no idea what they sounded like. I just had to hope for the best and hope that they were actually learning from what I was teaching them. And then at the end of class, we would all record. So everyone would be muted, but they would record it on a secondary device. And then they would send me the recording, and I put it all together to make them sound like an ensemble. And then they would perform it, and they would do the choreography and the staging, but they would be muted, lip syncing to their own voices. And it worked pretty well. And I think every time I've done a class, I've learned more and more about the best ways to record on Zoom, to not have weird things happen, because sometimes weird things just happen. And yeah, so much of it has just been trial and error, and the kids have been so gracious with me trying to figure out what I'm doing and letting me use them as guinea pigs. But I think it's also presented sort of a level of creativity that has been really valuable in my students, because they don't have the resources that they would normally have when working in our theater. They don't have costumes provided. They don't have sets provided. It's all about them sort of getting creative. When we did Frozen Junior, and for everything, I just say, think about your character, and the personality and how you think your character's feeling, and dress like that. So if you think your character is a really happy, sunshiny person, you can wear yellow, or just sort of think about that. And then my kids go above and beyond. I had 2 kids for The Lion King in like full-on Julie Taymor Timon makeup. Or someone built a whole savannah in their bedroom. She had a giant giraffe. I have no idea where it came from, but she was dancing with it during Can You Feel the Love Tonight? And it's just, they just went above and beyond. Same thing for Frozen Junior. Kids have Anna and Elsa dresses in their houses for some reason. They all do, and they all wore them. And it was just really refreshing to see them really take it seriously, even though I think there's accountability that's lost when you're not in the room, because it's so easy to get distracted, especially with little ones. They're like, my little brother is playing the drums right there. It's hard for me to listen to you right now. So I think there is a level of accountability that's lost, because I can't have them all sit on the floor with me and be fully present, because we're not in the same room and they do have distractions. But then I've also seen them totally just combat that and go full out and take it really seriously and really commit and decorate their whole house to look like a savannah.
Thanks. How many would you have at a time? Like 10, 15, 3?
The most I had was 22. 20, yeah, I had 22 for Lion King, and it was just tough to take attendance when I can't see them all on the screen at the same time. So for this session, for the last 2 sessions, I've done 16.
I have a question. How has being involved in theater education sort of changed your perspective on theater in general as like a practice and an art form?
Um, I don't know. I think I don't know that it has. I think I've always loved theater and really respected it as an art form. I think I just sort of approach children's theater slightly differently. I don't know that it's changed my perspective on theater as a whole. I think there are certain things that yeah, I don't know, because I think there's the education bit of it that colors it differently, but I don't think it's changed my perspective on theater as a whole. If that makes sense.
I have a question. If I can jump in. Kayla, this is great. It was really fascinating to hear about your work. And I guess I would like to hear you talk about the transition from being a student to now an educator. I know when I first started teaching, I had newfound respect for the teachers in my life. I'm sure you probably look at your theater profs maybe differently now that you are doing this kind of work too. But I guess I'm wondering, maybe as you look back at your time at Gordon, now knowing the kind of work you're doing in theater, would you have done things differently in terms of the kinds of classes you took, or looking back, are you like, I had no idea that work that I did would be so important to me now? So either looking back on your own time, the stuff that really has helped you, or stuff you wish you would have done or known back then. I'm thinking that might be helpful advice for students now who might want to get into the kind of work you're doing.
Yeah. I think in general, I wish I remembered more. Not that I like forgot all of college. But I think so much of being a student is juggling, right? So you're juggling lots of different things and trying to get lots of things done. So there comes a point where you have to prioritize certain things, and sometimes you have to prioritize your work in this random core class because you need a good grade and you don't have time to finish the play that you're supposed to read for your theater class. It just happens, Jeff. It happens. So I wish if I could go back, I think I would have just taken in more and just taken in all that I could, because I know like there are certain things, especially in like my tech classes, because I was like, I'm not going to go into technical theater. That's okay if I don't know how to draft. But those things end up coming in handy when you're working in children's theater, and you're everybody. You're the whole team, right? So I wish
I just want to add really quick that that's going to go on our next promo, what you just said. We're going to take the excerpt. Love it. Great. Yeah, I think in general, I just wished I'd taken in more. I'm really grateful for the stuff that I did save, and that I had resources to look back on that I could then use for my students. There are so many of Norm's warm-ups and things that I just changed to work with kids, because kids like when things are associated with food or animals, and I just make them kind of funky, and it totally works. So there's so many things that I learned at Gordon that I've taken in, and I think I think when I first started, and still, like, you just have major imposter syndrome, because you're like, oh, I'm like, look at these people who taught me. I'm not them. How can I teach someone else? And you just sort of feel like you're not qualified to do it. And then as you're doing it, you realize that you are, and that you know what you're doing. And it's a really good feeling.
That's so great. Thank you.
Any other questions? I have another one. I'm wondering if there's any aspects of your Zoom teaching that you think will transfer over whenever we're able to have theater productions and classes normally again. I know that seems very far off, but say I know that we've been thinking over at Gordon that like our senior showcases should always be in some digital format going forward, and that we should be sharing more stuff, posting more stuff to our website. So I'm wondering if there's any areas in your work that you think will continue to maybe be online, or stuff that's worked well that'll be digital or anything.
Yeah, I think in general the ability to mass share things that are recorded has been really great. So I am hoping to have more things be streamable, because so many people, so many kids have like grandparents out of town who want to see them perform and don't get to. I mean, that's really tough with like copyright and everything. You can't really, it's really hard to get stuff streamable, but maybe the industry will change because of all of this, because they should. And yeah, so like being able to stream things has been really nice. Also just the speed at which we learn things over Zoom, I think, is a lot quicker, because in camp, for example, normally in camp I would have 8 hours a day with the kids. We would just, it's like the school day because it's vacation camp. So I just have them all day, and by the end of the week we have a whole show. But because of Zoom fatigue, and you cannot hold kids' attention for 8 hours on a Zoom call, that would be terrifying. We just sort of condensed things and learned them a lot quicker, and made the kids practice outside of class, and it worked. So I think now I know that they can learn things a lot faster than they pretend to. So I think I'll definitely try to push that as well.
Thank you, that's great. All right, any final questions here for Kayla?
Just one comment. Keep it up. Keep it up, Kayla. You're doing great work.
Thanks, Jeff.
You know, I mean, there's nobody's applauding for you, you know, but the parents and you see the development, and it's lifelong. It's really rich stuff that you're doing. Don't let anybody ever tell you it's unimportant.
Great. All right, well, if there's no final questions, we can start to wrap up here. Kayla, just any final words from you? Anything you'd like to leave us with at the end of this workshop here?
Kids need theater. So do adults. Tell the government.
Well said, well said. Great, well, yeah, thanks everyone who was able to join us tonight. Definitely reach out to Kayla if you have any other questions, or want her to come do a workshop for you or anything. And yeah, we'll hopefully be able to get you back next year to help us with some more theater camp or theater activities at the summer. Yeah, thank you everyone who's tuned in this summer. This is our final session of the Digital Fine Arts Summer Festival. So thank you so much for joining us. We're hoping to do something like this again next year. If it has to be digital, we'll do it digitally again. Hopefully we can be in person in some capacity. But really, thank you for trusting in us this summer as we were doing some stuff on the fly and planning as far ahead as we could. But I think it's been a really great summer. We've been really happy with the sessions we've been able to have and the discussions, and yeah, just everything we've been able to learn. So thank you so much, whether you were a host, whether you were an audience member, thank you. And we hope to see you again real soon. All of our sessions, the recordings will be available at Gordon.edu/FineArtFest. You can learn more about all of our presenters and what they were teaching us this summer. So yeah, thank you again. We hope to see y'all real soon, and good luck with the start of classes tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.